Hi, this is Shannon, and I'm excited to welcome to my blog child nutrition expert Dr. Keith Ayub. He's here to share some advice on nutrition. Welcome, Dr. Ayub.
Hi there, Shannon. How are you?
Good, thanks. So, how are parents and kids doing when it comes to healthy eating? What are some healthy eating habits that parents can instill in their kids?
Well, this is a great topic. It's one I deal with a lot, and parents are very concerned wanting to give their kids a healthy diet. Now, one of the things that parents can do really that would make such a great influence is make sure that their kids eat breakfast every day. It really is the most important meal. And parents often say that they're pressed for time, but they've got to make time for breakfast for kids because it is so important. It's one of the most nutrient-rich meals of the day. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. If you're short in time, one of my favorite options for people who are short in time is actually a bowl of ready-to-eat cereal and fresh fruit and low-fat milk. And it's actually so nutrient-rich, but it doesn't have a lot of calories. So it's not going to, it's perfect for overweight kids or anybody who's trying to prevent overweight. But it's also good for every kid because it covers a lot of gaps in kids' diets. We know they're not getting enough low-fat and fat-free milk. We know kids need to eat more fruit. They also need to eat more whole grains. And that's why that fits a bill as an ideal option. But you can add to that, too, if kids are even still hungry. Add some string cheese or a hard-boiled egg or even last night's chicken drumsticks. So if they need a little more time to get through to lunch without being hungry.
Great. What about the rest of the day's meals? How do parents make sure their kids are getting everything they need?
Well, I'll tell you, it's important to make sure that your kids have good eating habits, and that starts by, eating with them. If you want to get your kids eating a healthy diet, it's important to have at least one meal a day with them because it's not just important for nutrition, it's important all around it for just good family dynamics. But it also gives your kids, it gives you a chance to understand what your kids are eating, what their preferences are, and what they'll actually do. And what you see them doing may be very well what they're going to be doing when they leave home. A lot of parents think that they don't know what their kids are doing, but oftentimes when kids leave home, they actually end up sticking to the same habits they had when they were at home. So it's a good thing to do. But also, having a meal at home with your kids is more likely to be a healthy one because meals prepared and eaten at home are more likely to have fruit, vegetables, more fiber, more calcium, and fewer added fats and sugars. All the things that we want kids to be eating. But if we want them to do that, we have to do it with them.
Right. What about picky eaters? Any tips for parents who are trying to get their kids to eat the veggies?
Well, I'll tell you, what you want to avoid is a food fight. Okay, that never happens. That never helps. What I think it's important to do, though, is look at those fruits and vegetables, for example, that your kids will eat. Even if they don't love them, will they eat them sometimes? That's great. That's a good starting point. And I call it exploiting the positives because those are those are foods that you won't have a lot of pushback from. And start with that. And even if you include them fairly often, that's okay. If they're good, there's no bad fruit or vegetables, so the more you can get into them, the better. One parent recently told me that, she wants her kids to eat more vegetables, but the only ones that they really like are carrots and broccoli and tomatoes. And I said, stop right there, okay? If they eat those and they eat them every day, that's actually pretty good. Anything they eat on top of that is just bonus. But those happen to be three really nutrient-rich vegetables. And so really realize that, they don't have to eat every single vegetable that exists. 3 or 4 fruits, 3 or 4 vegetables, and they're okay. You can mix in with those things a new food. For example, if you're mixing, if you're having broccoli, have cauliflower and have them try a taste of it. They get overwhelmed if you put a big pile in front of them, but they're not so overwhelmed and they're much more willing to taste food if they know it's just a tiny amount. So that's a good way to introduce it.
Okay.
One more thing also I should say, I often tell parents, introduce a new food as something that they have to take a taste of, they don't have to like, and give them what they call a taste. So it's always okay to take a taste and just tell me what you think.
That's a good tip.
No pressure there. So.
No pressure. My last question relates to food allergies. How can parents fill the nutritional gaps that can occur when their child has to avoid such allergens as milk and eggs?
That's an important one because avoiding the allergen is not negotiable. That has to happen. And while they may need to avoid milk, they still need to have the nutrients that are in milk, and milk's loaded with them. It's really got 3 of the 4 shortfall nutrients in most people's diet. It's got calcium, vitamin D, and and potassium. So those are foods that are those are nutrients that are really important. Potassium's easy to get from fruits and vegetables. They're all pretty good sources of that. So potassium is less of a concern, but calcium and vitamin D are really important. And switching over to like a fortified soy beverage is important. Because you need a daily source. So that's probably the best way to go for people who are allergic. It's a little bit more expensive, but it certainly is an option. And so is incorporating other high calcium foods, such as whenever you can get your kids to eat fish, fatty fish, or even canned fish with the bones in them. Believe it or not, canned salmon is an absolutely terrific food, and just substitute that for tuna fish, for example. That's a great way to get more calcium and vitamin D into kids. And tuna fish is a food that kids like, but they like salmon if it's made the same way as well. And between that and soy yogurt, for example, is another great way to get calcium into your kids.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayub, for joining me online today and for sharing this great advice.
Thank you very much.